And as for part 2 on games that I actually want to rant about properly, instead of giving half-assed reviews for, is The Lost Crown, a ghost hunting adventure. I first played this several years ago, and after finishing it, I seem to remember wanting to reinstall it so I could talk about it on this channel, but for some reason the hard copy I had wasn't working properly, so I ended up getting it on Steam and then still didn't talk about it for some reason. Now, at the time of playing it, I thought that this game wasn't all that bad, and for a game that hardly anyone has ever heard of, I thought that it had some features that were certainly commendable. In fact, I may have even gone so far as to recommend this game had anyone asked. That was until recently, when I suddenly remembered this game, and went back to have a look and what the fuck was I thinking? Now, I stand behind my previous premise of this game has some commendable features, but it actually frightens me that I had somehow ignored all of the other problems that this game suffers from, and thankfully, we have a rant right here with another top 10. No, wrong video. So, a quick bit about this game itself before we get into it. The Lost Crown, or to give it its full name, The Lost Crown, a Ghost Hunting Adventure, but that's way too long, so I'm just going to call it The Lost Crown, is a British point-and-click game from 2008 that's not too sure if it's trying to be atmospheric first, or just horror. You play the part of Nigel Danvers, who's on the run for being a British lawyer from London in England with an English passport, because he's stolen some documents from his boss that portrays his boss as a c***, and now his company is after him. He winds up in the coastal region of Saxton, which is a fictional place but is based upon somewhere in Cornwall, I think. But he soon finds out that this village and the surrounding area is teeming with supernatural phenomena. You walk around the village, meet the locals, meet the ghosts, and meet the local psychic who's going to help you get to the bottom of all of this junk. From that point on, your time here will be focused on your typical point-and-click adventure puzzles, involving you picking up random items for later use, as well as trying to document ghostly sightings. Including the cottage you're staying in, which is apparently loaded with ghosts, to the point where I'm starting to think that the developers might have been playing a little too much Silent Hill 4. Speaking of which, I think the developers have been watching too much Schindler's List as well, because the entire thing is monochromatic, with the exception of certain elements such as flowers and eye colour, and for some reason, the sky around the church being shown in actual colour, and I don't understand the significance of this. Is it to demonstrate to us that this world we live in is just as inhabited by the dead as it is of the living? Is it trying to tell us that we live in a bleak and joyless world where you stop to consider that death is waiting for all of us? Or did the developers just get a little pretentious and perhaps lazy on this one, and found that it was easier just to not add in colour? I don't know. It does help to add to the atmosphere in certain places, and you'll eventually get used to it. But having the entire game portrayed in black and white is a pretty big statement you're making there. It's just a shame that that statement is never actually made clear. It also doesn't help that the voice acting overall is abysmal. Nigel Danvers keeps going for these really ineffective dramatic pauses on almost every occasion he can.
Can I rent a room for a week? Did you see anybody else board the train at London? Please, please, show me. Who took the crown? Is May a busy time for Saxton?
And some of the characters sound exactly the same as other characters who you've met. I mentioned this same problem recently in my Siberia 3 rant, in which voice actors were recycled for different characters, but didn't have the experience to try out any different voices. And like what I did with that video, it's only fair that I do it here.
This town attracts all sorts of freaks and losers at this time of year. Oh, sir, it may be lacking a little polish here and there, but this old girl hasn't let us down yet.
Now, that's not to say that all of them are bad, some of them are okay or even passable, but guys, come on. All it takes is a bit of quality assurance.
Had much experience of geology, have you?
Had much experience of audio editing, have you? Because that sounded like you recorded that line in your bedroom and then just exported it over to the devs. It's called basic noise removal, and it's not hard to do. I do that shit all the time when I record my voice. You see, whenever you record something, the microphone will not only record what you're saying, but any ambient noise as well. Most of this noise you won't even notice normally, but the microphone sure will. For example, right now I'm using an audio recording which has not had noise removal applied to it, and while you can't hear everything around me clearly, you can pick up on certain ambient noises. But now, if I apply a basic noise removal feature to it, and there we go, clean as a whistle. I timed how long it took me to edit that piece of audio with this feature. It took 7 seconds. It's not hard. Atmospherically speaking, this game is actually pretty good. In fact, I'd say that this game's atmosphere is easily its selling point. Throughout your entire time playing this game, the feeling that something is following you, watching you constantly, is ever present and is quite unnerving at times. None more so at night, where the game gets you to investigate the cottage you've been staying in, because Nigel keeps hearing noises, and you end up setting up ghost traps and recordings most haunted style, but without the annoying scouse. Wait, what was that, Sam? This is one big scam? Are you sure your name isn't Scam instead of Sam? But once again, Silent Hill 4 comes to mind. But as far as horror goes, it just feels like this game never really quite gets there. There are some moments that will make you jump though.
Hello? Is someone there?
Nigel!
Lucy!
But all of these are very tame, and it doesn't quite feel as exciting as a ghost hunting adventure sounds like it would be. In fact, a lot of what you end up doing isn't even ghost hunting related.
7 pigeon and nut broth. It's an Anglo-Saxon recipe.
Really? Now there's a thing. Is it, well, edible?
Good heavens, I should hope so. Perhaps you could help.
Oh, okay.
And even when this game does decide to throw ghosts at you, it comes off, well, this really needs to be seen to be believed. Do I win a stuffed animal if I get all of them? Do I at least get a minion plushie? Come on. This part was an unnecessary curveball that I think we could have done without. And curveballs aren't necessarily a bad idea, and I like the fact that we have a section that's making me wake up and get my arse into gear. But unfortunately, the game doesn't exactly do this very often. Instead, falling back on getting you to go from A to B and rub either an item against another item or point something at something else. I get that this game is trying to recreate how an actual paranormal investigation will go down, but that's really boring if that's what you're going for. Unless you enjoy the idea of setting up some cameras and then going to bed, it'd probably be best not to make a game based on that. Graphically speaking, this game is okay, I guess. But it's nothing special for its time. I appreciate that this was made by an indie team and their budget probably wasn't all that good, but I'm sure that there were better tools around at their disposal around this time that they could have used. I mean, I mentioned Silent Hill 4 earlier on, and while that was made by a bigger studio, the graphics of that shit's all over anything that the Lost Crown manages to churn out. There must have been something better for them to have used, instead of... Wait, what engine did they use for this game? Let's see. The Wintermute engine. Okay, I can't think of any other games that use that off the top of my head. Except for maybe... No. No. Oh, please no. Tell me it's not so.
No! God, please, no! 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 No!
Yep, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. This game uses the same graphics engine as one of the worst games of all time. There's a reason why hardly anyone used this engine. It wasn't good in the best of hands and was terrible in the worst. So, okay, the devs here did a much better job of it than Limbo of the Lost, and fortunately, they didn't do any of those fucking close-up shots, just so that they didn't have to put any effort into lip-syncing their lines. Yet upon further inspection, The Lost Crown did this too! Though not to the same extreme extent that Limbo does, I can recall several parts where you'd get a close-up of someone's face, yet something would be in the way, preventing you from seeing their mouths. They pulled the same shit that Limbo of the Lost Crown did! The name starts to match up as well! To all of my viewers at home, I am so sorry about this, but I believe that we've stumbled upon something that mankind was never meant to discover, and it all makes sense. The engine that was used, the similarity in names, the same practices that were used, the fact that both games were developed in Britain, it all makes sense now. And Limbo of the Lost also hinted that a sequel is in development. This is the sequel to the worst game ever. This is Limbo of the Lost 2. Not only that, but Siberia has some influences in this game as well, and I have proof. If you start the game and talk to the station master, look at what the name of the train is. But, and this is the really shocking part, if you zoom in and squint your eyes, you'll see... Yes! Yes! This game was made as a collaboration between the people who made Limbo of the Lost and Siberia. I've confirmed it right here. Okay, I was just joking there, but speaking of sequels, I did learn about 2 days ago that this game is getting a sequel and is due out this year. Really? I also read somewhere that there's a theory going rounds that none of what happens in the game is actually taking place. That this is all some kind of simulation and that Nigel was actually caught by his pursuers right at the start of the game. And there is some evidence for this, considering that his boss described him as going nowhere, and as I've just shown you, the train's called Sleepwalker. But if that's true, then I can finally say that I don't care about this game, because if it is just a simulation, then there's no reason for me to get invested in it, because what I'm doing has no meaning. And you could argue against that with other examples from games or stories that do that, like The Matrix, Assassin's Creed, Danganronpa 2, or even Harvester. But the purpose of being in a simulation is made clear to us along the way. The Lost Crown doesn't do that, however. If we really are in a simulation, then at no point do we find out why we're in a simulation. You start the game, do stuff, and then finish the game. At no point does the simulation bit ever crop up, so I fail to see why that would add anything to the story. In conclusion, this game is actually alright, and I was only kidding before when I compared it to Limbo. I was legitimately invested in certain sections, and this game does certainly get under your skin at times. You can't fault the originality here, and the fact that some of the ghosts can be missed if you're not looking for them specifically is a nice touch. However, this game isn't exactly one that I'd recommend you go out of your way for. It has some good moments, sure, but it also has plenty of lackluster moments. Despite the occasional horror trope, they're few and far between, and in some cases, they fail to make any impact, leading me to question whether this is actually a horror title, or if it's just a thriller title that occasionally wears the horror jacket when it's feeling a little cold. As of right now, you can get it on Steam for £7, or just over $9 if you're American, and honestly, I don't think that's worth it. This game doesn't have much in the way of payoff, and you'll most likely be thinking, meh, it was alright, by the end of it, and would you pay nearly $10 for a meh experience? If yes, then sure, get it. You come to this channel after all, and my content is filled with meh experiences.
Sometimes I think this life is killing me.